Can you talk a little bit about that? I think in your paper you talked about the large language models that have increased 300,000 times in 6 years, a far higher pace than Moore's law. And like, what's happening to a single prompt and the number of turns between, let's say, the chatbot and the user, and how that's actually contributing to these rising emissions?
Right. So there's a few things going on there. So one is that essentially every action that an AI system takes requires some amount of energy. And I think everyone has experienced this, like with your computer getting hot, right? So at a certain point, like there's so many computations that things can really slow down and get hot or whatever. And so because of that, you need data centers that run cooling. They're like literally like cold water, so that that the systems can keep computing easily without getting overheated and melting. And then people don't experience like any issues. They don't notice that, there's something on the other side that might be doing tons of computations. And so the thing about the systems getting larger and larger and how that relates to more and more data centers is fairly direct. So if I say the word cat and it's a small network, then maybe it just associates it to the word dog and it can only say dog. But if it's a larger network, then it can associate it to sentences about dogs. And that requires more computations and more storage and more accessing of all these different kind of stored representations. And then as it gets larger and larger, now it's associating to, entire documents and then doing processing over all of the sequences relevant to those documents, those like strings of text. And then using that in formulating further what to say back to you. So essentially, the larger and larger it gets at inference time when it's talking to you, the more computations it's doing and the more things it has access to. And that requires more computations on the server side, which means it requires more and more powerful systems, more and more servers, and then more and more data centers.
I don't know whether or not this is going to be the same type of investment that happened back in the year 2000, when they laid all the foundation for the internet and it never returned. And this is the reason why, well, it didn't return until like 10 years later. But in the succeeding years, it's what caused the first internet bubble, because there was so much hope for it. But now I think the difference is, are we building out these data centers in the most efficient way when they're showing early stage that it's far too expensive to actually work within the current infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that is more anecdotal, but I think we're going to figure out whether or not that's going to happen. I wanted to ask you specifically on, I would